Writing. Love X Revenge. Welcome back to Love X Revenge, where unexpected encounters ignite powerful emotions, secrets unravel, and love finds its way through the most unlikely paths. The bus was unusually crowded that evening, the kind of suffocating rush that made every second feel heavier than the last. Rain tapped softly against the fogged windows, blurring the neon lights outside into streaks of color. People stood shoulder to shoulder, clutching their bags, lost in their own worlds. Among them was Alina, a young intern who had just finished another exhausting day at work. Her eyes burned from staring at spreadsheets for hours. Her back ached from sitting too long. She had stayed late again, hoping to impress her boss, hoping to secure a permanent position. But all she earned was fatigue and a half-hearted, "good job." With no empty seats left, she squeezed herself into a narrow space and grabbed the overhead rail. The bus jerked forward, and her grip tightened instinctively. She exhaled slowly, trying to stay awake. Just a few stops more, she told herself. Just a little longer. But exhaustion is a quiet thief. It doesn't ask permission. Her eyelids fluttered once, twice, and then slowly closed. The next thing she knew, her body gave in completely. Her head tilted sideways and came to rest gently against someone's shoulder. A stranger. She didn't notice. The man she leaned on stiffened slightly at first, caught off guard. He turned his head, expecting to see someone careless or perhaps rude. But instead, he saw a young woman, clearly worn out, her expression soft and vulnerable in sleep. A few loose strands of her hair clung to her cheek. Her breathing was calm, steady. He didn't move. In fact, he adjusted his posture just slightly, making it more comfortable for her. His name was Adrian Hale. To everyone else on that bus, he was just another passenger in a dark coat. Quiet, unassuming. But Adrian wasn't just anyone. He was the CEO of one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the country. A self-made millionaire known for his sharp mind, ruthless decisions, and cold demeanor. In boardrooms, people feared him. In business, he never showed mercy. Yet here he was, standing still in a crowded bus, letting a stranger sleep on his shoulder. Minutes passed, then more. Every time the bus jerked or turned, Adrian made sure she didn't lose balance. His hand hovered near her arm more than once, ready to steady her, though he never touched her unless necessary. For reasons he didn't understand, he couldn't bring himself to wake her. Maybe it was the way she looked so peaceful. Maybe it was the contrast to his own restless nights. Or maybe, just maybe, it was the first time in years someone had leaned on him without expecting anything in return. The bus began to empty slowly as it moved farther from the city center. The noise died down. The air became less suffocating. Alina shifted slightly in her sleep, her head pressing a little more firmly against him. Adrian froze for a second, then relaxed again. He let out a quiet breath. Strange, he thought. Very strange. After nearly 20 minutes, the bus announced the next stop loudly. The sudden voice jolted Alina awake. Her eyes snapped open, and for a brief moment, she was disoriented. Then she realized. Her head was on someone's shoulder. She pulled back instantly, eyes wide with embarrassment. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." She blurted out, her face turning red. "I didn't mean to. I'm really sorry." Adrian looked at her, his expression calm, almost unreadable. "It's fine," he said simply. She blinked, surprised by his composed tone. "You didn't have to just let me," she added awkwardly, brushing her hair behind her ear. "You looked like you needed it," he replied. There was no sarcasm in his voice, no irritation, just a quiet statement. Alina didn't know what to say to that. "Still, thank you," she murmured, her embarrassment slowly turning into something else, something warmer. The bus slowed again. "This is my stop," she said quickly, grabbing her bag. She hesitated for a second, then added, "Sorry again, and thank you." Adrian gave a small nod. She stepped off the bus, disappearing into the rainy night. And just like that, she was gone. But something lingered. Adrian remained standing there for a moment longer than necessary. The space beside him suddenly felt empty. Unusual. He wasn't used to noticing things like that. The next morning, the office buzzed with its usual energy. Employees hurried across hallways, whispering about deadlines, meetings, and expectations. At the center of it all was the same intimidating presence that ruled over everything, Adrian Hale. He walked into the building, his expression as cold and composed as ever. No one could have guessed that just hours ago, he had been standing on a crowded bus, silently protecting a stranger's sleep. Inside the conference room, executives were already waiting. "Good morning, sir," one of them greeted nervously. Adrian nodded, taking his seat. "Let's begin." The meeting went on like any other: numbers, projections, strategies. His voice was sharp, his decisions precise. This was the Adrian everyone knew. Untouchable, unshakable, uninterested. But halfway through the meeting, something unexpected happened. The door opened slightly, and a young woman stepped in, holding a stack of files. "I'm sorry, I was told to deliver these." She stopped mid-sentence. Adrian looked up, and for the first time that day, his composure cracked, just a little. It was her, Alina. Her eyes widened in shock as recognition hit her. "You," she whispered before she could stop herself. The room fell silent. Everyone looked between them, confused. Adrian leaned back slightly, his gaze steady on her. "You work here?" he asked. Alina swallowed. I'm an intern," she said quietly. A pause followed. Then, slowly, something changed in Adrian's expression. Not warmth exactly, but curiosity. "Come in," he said. The executives exchanged glances, unsure of what was happening. Alina stepped inside hesitantly, placing the files on the table. Her hands trembled slightly. She couldn't believe it. The man from the bus, the stranger she had fallen asleep on, was the CEO. Her CEO. "I didn't know," she began, her voice barely steady. "You weren't supposed to," Adrian replied calmly. There was no anger in his tone. No judgment. Just truth. The meeting resumed, but the atmosphere had shifted. Every now and then, Adrian's gaze would drift toward her, as if trying to understand something he couldn't quite define. And Alina, she couldn't focus at all. That night, as she walked home, her mind replayed everything over and over again. The bus. The moment. His voice. "You looked like you needed it." No one had ever said something like that to her before. Days passed. Then weeks. Their paths crossed more often than expected. At first, it was just coincidence, passing each other in hallways, brief eye contact, nothing more. But slowly, those moments began to stretch. A nod turned into a greeting. A greeting turned into a conversation. And conversations became something neither of them had planned. Adrian found himself asking about her work, her ambitions, her life, and Alina, despite her initial fear, began to see a side of him no one else did. A quieter side, a more human one. But not everything was simple. Whispers started. People noticed. An intern getting attention from the CEO. It didn't sit well with everyone. Especially not with those who had their own ambitions. One evening, Alina overheard something that made her heart sink. "She's just another distraction," someone said. "He'll get bored." The words stung more than she expected. Because somewhere along the way, she had stopped seeing him as just the man from the bus. And started seeing him as someone who mattered. The question was, did he feel the same? Or was she just another passing moment in his perfectly controlled world? Adrian stood by the window of his office that night, looking out at the city lights. For the first time in years, his thoughts weren't about business. They were about her. The girl who fell asleep on his shoulder without knowing who he was. The girl who didn't want anything from him. The girl who made him feel something he had long forgotten. And for a man like Adrian Hale, that was the most dangerous thing of all.